Hey everybody, it's Tim Sackett, and you're back with another episode of SmashUps, brought to you by the great folks at Fistful of Talent. Got a competitor here next to me. We'll see how that goes. And of course, brought to you, allowing us is Smashfly and the recruitment marketing platform over there. So check them out at smashfly.com. I have with me in the same room, not via Skype, in Park City, Utah, at the HireVue's Digital Disrupt, Jackye Clayton, who is, I'm going to give her a new title, Chief Editor of Recruiting Daily. She says she's the editor. I think she's way more than that. Jackye, how are you?
I'm good. I've never thought I would be in Utah for a million years. Never.
Because you're black?
Because it's Utah. Well, and that whole black thing doesn't come into play.
And Jackie's from Waco, Texas. And so she's part of the Davidian cult. And we'll talk about that later. We'll unpack that as we go. But no, if you don't know Jackye and Recruiting Daily, make sure you check her out. Her writing's awesome. I'm a big fan. I don't read many people, but she's definitely one that I do. I'm trying to make her blush. And so we're here at Digital Disrupt. It's a really good user conference for HireVue because they bring their clients in, but they don't pitch product constantly, which is awesome. Because I hate those user conferences.
Same.
And they had Josh Person in yesterday, which love Josh. He always has great stuff to talk about. And one of the things that he laid on us was, hey, the ATS is going to be dead. It's not the tech stack, talent acquisition stack of the future. Companies like HireVue, companies like Reflex, like all these smaller kind of individual techs within TA are really the future. And then how we actually kind of plug them together as an organization or piece them together is really going to be our tech stack, which I actually kind of agree with because I love the best of breed versus the suite.
Right.
But what do you think?
You know, I start looking at all the tech stack. I think what you'll find is that things like that will get completely out of control. Yeah. Like it just will be like nobody will use it. And then you'll find that we can't track candidates. I mean, we're still going to have to track candidates one way or another. The thing that makes me nervous about tools like this is that we know with all assessments, it's a snapshot of what happened that day, right? I think if you've been a recruiter for any amount of time, we all know we interviewed somebody, talked to them again, and it's like, oh, well, my mom died the day before. So I'm sorry, I skipped out on the interview. Things that it cannot assess. Yeah. And so, you know, I think we just have to be careful. The thing that makes me worried is that you go back 2 years later, oh, we interviewed him, here's the interview, without recognizing all the things that have changed. Yeah. And I think that's some of what we see as challenges as we go back into our ATS, because everybody's like, oh, your perfect candidate was there and you never looked at him. But the resume is from 4 years ago. Oh, he doesn't have a degree, he's not qualified. Well, he might now. So
the data science and the amount of pieces of data they're picking up from an interview, especially like with the facial stuff and the tone and the words you're saying, and now they're talking about in the future like helping with D&I hiring as well. Yep. And you and I could probably talk to somebody. In our minds, we're going, "Oh, that person's racist." Right. You know, and now can you imagine if the technology could pick up on that? Yeah. Because sometimes people just don't have that, right? Where they just don't see that as well. But I think it's getting to that point. So again, the technology for me is crazy. I can imagine taking like a CRM like Smashfly, taking like a really good interview assessment kind of technology like HireVue, and saying, look, if I just had those two, I could probably run my TA shop without an ATS. Right. As long as I had like a core HRS, I could eventually throw the people into with some onboarding and stuff like that. Right. But I'm thinking, gosh, man, Josh maybe does have, make some sense here. And again, he probably digs into this farther than either one of you or I. I mean, he's constantly on this stuff. But very interesting thing from him. What else have you gotten from the conference?
Well, I didn't realize, and I was laughing because I'm like, I totally am drinking the Kool-Aid, right? So I was like, oh, crap. I didn't know you could do that. You can hire people in 2 days? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
You never have to interview them?
Ever. Yeah. You don't even have to talk to them. They're hired on the spot.
Oh, yeah. They'll show up Monday.
At Shipped, they were talking about how they used it, and they will drive the same day.
Yeah. That's a little scary.
That's a little scary. I mean, I think that it's cool, but I think that there's a whole picture. Maybe I'm just old school. I'm turning into my mom. I just want to go backwards. But I always think about the challenges we've had up to this point. Yeah. And like, okay, so here's an example. Going back to like we were saying, oh, that computer's racist, right? So, okay, we'll say...
The computer's racist?
Well, yeah, the computer's racist. Totally.
Apple computers, yes. Why do we both go to Apple?
I don't know. Oh, we're both back users, too. I hope they don't have my Apple ID. They probably will with my eyes. But anyway, you look at somebody's going, I'm telling you, this is going to happen. Someone's going to sue. They're going to say they weren't hired because they were black. Yeah. They're going to say, show me all the candidates. They will be the only black candidate. the company's going to blame the software company that said that it's not going to be biased. It's going to it might not do anything, but once something like that comes up, then you have to reformat and rechange everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I do think because of the amount of data, the chance for disparate impact is probably a lot less because they're going to be able to fight that. We'll see what happens.
Right.
But so another thing that came up yesterday that you and I were in the back of the class kind of laughing, or I was laughing or making you laugh, which was this concept of talent acquisition as a revenue driver.
Right.
And there's an entire panel talking about, oh my gosh, in the process, and here's how it goes, right? Somebody applies for your job, and then you go through this process, and maybe it's after an interview, maybe it's before an interview, you decide to send them an offer. Like when I was at Applebee's, it would be like, hey, thanks for interviewing. You suck. We're never going to hire you. Have a free appetizer. And that should make you feel great, and that's a great candidate experience. And so all these companies were getting really jazzed up about how they're going to become revenue drivers. And I was like, oh, please.
The best is when we were like,
if that's your marketing approach to driving revenue, you're in trouble.
We were laughing about how they were talking about with vans about how they give them a coupon when they apply.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, so if I buy shoes, people are going to think, oh, I bought the shoes, so maybe I'll have a better chance at the interview. Just like the sweepstakes.
I asked the hire people if they could put that as a data point. Like, so, hey, can we track the coupon code to find out who actually bought more, and that gives them more points on the assessment to actually, because I want to hire fans, right? I want to hire people that are customers.
Right.
I don't want to hire someone who doesn't love us. So if someone spent $200 versus somebody who spent $0, isn't a $200 person more valuable to me as a candidate? Now we're really going down.
I love that.
We're like, and they were like, no,
we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that. Like, why?
But it does seem kind of, on the one side, it's like, oh, well, that's nice. Thanks for the present. On the other side, we were like, dude, I don't want to hire you, but I will take your money.
Yeah.
At any point. Because people do realize that if you do have a bad experience, you will not only will you talk bad about the company and do Glassdoor and whatever, you will also not buy that product.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No. Explain it. Explain it more.
Well, it's one of those things that's like, well, you pissed me off at, Puma.com.
Yeah. You
didn't call me. You didn't give me feedback. I hate your shoes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter. I had an example, which on the reverse of that, like my phone. I had T-Mobile. I was so pissed. My phone kept getting hot. I call him and I say, I hate your phone. Hate you. Hate your mom. And he was like, what phone is it? That sucks. Right? He was like, I hate that phone. Yeah. So it was like, it made me feel like they understood me. But for them to, I need a job, and now you're asking me to spend money?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, again, to me, it was the whole kind of, they're trying to connect dots by saying, like, we're somehow going to increase our candidate experience by giving a discount or giving some kind of a product or giving something. Right. And again, it goes back to the concept of, all of your candidates are customers, potentially. So we need to treat our candidates like customers. That's a really big kind of popular opinion, especially with the candies folks and stuff like that. And I get it, because potentially and it works really well like with retails and casual dining and all this. I was talking to one of the TA leaders from CDW, and she was kind of like, our candidates will never be customers of ours.
Right.
Like, this makes no sense to me, And I think that some of that's lost then when that kind of stuff happens. So there definitely goes there. Anything else from the conference that you've had a big takeaway on?
Well, I think that I feel like we do need some more assessment before making those decisions.
Yeah.
It does, because I do think there's so many resumes. It's so easy to apply. We can get really tired. And it's like we only look at the top 25, right?
Oh, yeah. It's completely first in, first out.
You're right. So it's like, okay, it's easy. Mm-hmm. So I do think it would be great to do some of that assessment in the front end. I do also, one thing I was curious, Unilever was talking about their graduate program and how they got grads all over the place and they did these assessments. And my take was, because I think people still hate assessments, they were trying to tell us that people love taking assessments.
Yeah.
But I think that people that are college students are used to taking some type of assessment.
For sure.
Just to get a roommate or their lunch plan. Yeah. They have to fill out all these forms and whatever. So I'm wondering, I always want to see the math on that. Now, the other thing that I would like to see, interestingly enough, and you don't have to use this or whatever, but it cracks me up to think about HireVue talking about diversity when they're not very diverse.
You mean as a company?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I thought yesterday they did, Parker, the CEO, did a little bit better talking about inclusion versus diversity.
That's right. And that's different.
And Lauren today, their CTO, kind of talked a little bit more about diversity and the ability of the software to impact, I think, the diversity pool,
right?
And probably pull more individuals into the actual interview pool that are diverse candidates versus what you can traditionally,
right?
So I think it is. I mean, that's a struggle, but you know, Chris Dunn always teases me because I'm like the one white guy that always thinks I could be like the head of diversity and inclusion for any company.
That's right.
You know, I'm like middle-aged white guy. Here I am. Like
right.
I can fix this. You know.
right.
And we did talk about who. It was Polly LeBaire.
Yes.
That talked about you know, that ability to kind of you know, she's, you know, everything's been change and disruption and all of this stuff, but you know, really just the ability to, I think differently about how we do some of that stuff. And you know, when it comes to diversity hiring, I think that's where most companies struggle, is because they want to have a great idea, but they're not willing to put the accountability on the side.
That's right.
And I think that's where that we miss in most of diversity hiring, is that there's no accountability put on hiring managers, on TA. I mean, they might have it as a measure, but it's never. They always like, oh well, we don't want to talk about the number. Well, if you want to try to impact if you're trying to impact the number, you got to be held accountable to a number. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to hire a less qualified person over somebody else. I think that's the fear.
That is the fear. And I was explaining that to my daughter as she was like, you need to hire the best person for the job. And I was like, but you have to measure what that means.
Do you like how I just mansplained to you diversity?
Yes. You mansplained, you black-splained it. You white-splained it.
I just white-splained
diversity to me as a black woman. Can you explain that to me more?
God.
Well,
all right, we're going to start over. No,
no. But, you know, well, all that aside, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Do you think it's disruptive? Do you find HireVue, and what we're learning and what we're seeing, disruptive?
I do, from the standpoint of most TA leaders today still will take a look at it and go, oh, well, we can't. We don't want to do video interviews, because then the hiring manager will see the video of the person and they'll say, oh my gosh, Jackie's black, I'm not hiring her.
Right.
You know, and I mean, and that's still that the majority, I think, still feel like that's in TA that our hiring managers can't handle that. Right. Where I think the data now is so strong that you instantly can show, well, hey, we have a racist hiring manager. Right. It's right here. You know, the data's showing we gave you this pool of candidates and you're only interviewing this one or whatever it might be. So I don't even think that's a fear, but yet it's still considered disruptive.
Well, you know what's interesting? My background was always in technology recruiting. And I find that with tech managers, they don't care what you are, who you are. I mean, granted, there's not as many women. We don't see as many.
Yeah.
I think that we have to make a bigger effort. Like, it has to be a conscious decision to try to look for some of those candidates. But I think I found that in that type of group, because a lot of those people aren't working, you know, as close. I don't know if that's what it is, or if they have a goal that needs to get done.
Yeah.
And they don't care who you are, alien, you know, H1, you know, because that's where you see a lot of that, where we're recruiting from all over the world for that. So I don't think you see it as much. But I would like to see numbers. It makes more sense for me to see numbers, and I would like to see numbers based on verticals.
Yeah. And I think the technology like HireVue, and there's a bunch of them that are coming into the space that we've seen in terms of ranking candidates, whatever algorithm that might be, if you believe theirs versus another one, at least dig into that and know what's in there. And HireVue seems to be the one that has probably more data points than anybody else. But you know, when we take a look at 50 candidates, 100 candidates, 200, 1,000 applying for a job, they're physically, you know, human-wise, you just never can get through that.
That's what I think HireVue, and this is something I pulled from yesterday. I think it's or tools like HireVue are great when you're working with retail or in
mass hiring, right?
Yeah, hospitality.
Yeah, manufacturing.
I mean, in those jobs, and also I don't want to use the word gig economy, but I just said it. But like when need to hire extra staff because you have the Super Bowl in town, I think that makes it easy and fast for jobs like that.
Well, I'll do a shout out to the healthcare systems as well. There's a lot of healthcare systems here.
I'm shouting it out.
And they struggle. They're so far behind in their TA stack for most. It's a broad stroke. But coming out of the healthcare field, like, oh my gosh, like some of those are so far behind. And like at HireVue to be able to come in and give them anything that will help, I think there's a lot of great kind of one-on-one stories here that people are sharing in the content stream. So to me, I think also healthcare is another one that has a huge impact.
There was one that was huge that literally almost made me cry. I was like, yeah, that's when I was like, maybe I should leave, and I've had too much Kool-Aid of the HireVue Kool-Aid. They were talking about that it was a hospital, a children's hospital, Children's Mercy, I think. Okay, so what they do through their process of interviewing candidates, they actually get the children to ask the question during the interview process.
Wow. That's like pulling the heartstrings, right?
Right. And they were but they were like, these are the people they're going to see every day, so they need to be able to get through this.
To me, that's a recruitment marketing thing, though, too, right?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
That's clearly
but I was
putting
like,
you in front of, like, otherwise, could you imagine if you do a geriatric person and you have some old person trying to ask a question and they can't get through it? Now, what? What did you, I can't hear you.
That's
like,
I used to work for Holiday Retirement, and it was like independent living, and I was thinking the same thing, like, Rufus, what are you doing on here, Rufus? But I was like, whoa, and that was healthcare, and I thought, I don't know how they passed that. Like, I have an idea. Let's go to children's oncology. Yeah. Look at them to ask questions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, that'd be so powerful.
And because, of course, you want to work there at the end of it, because you feel purpose and whatever. So that was something that was amazing. And I think that might be good. I was thinking about that to be good for other companies, easy to use as a marketing piece, instead of, I'm the hiring manager, like, hey,
Yeah.
I work over here. This is all part of the team. I think that would be...
That's awesome.
That's easy.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time.
No, I want to thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Anytime anybody wants more white-splaining on diversity, just come back here.
White-splaining is the word of the week. Thank you for that.
Thank you to Fistful of Talent. Check out Smashfly. Don't... anything I say is not on them. It's all on me. Smashfly.com. Thank you for sponsoring. And we're out. We'll check you out next time.